Hi, good evening. This is Edward with sonsofgod.com. It's Saturday, October 30th, 2010, and this is the launching of our weekly broadcast on Saturday evening, so that we have something of a overview available come Sunday morning for you. Ann and I wanted to express our thanks for the faith that we feel from so many of you in the Spirit as we continue to press forward toward the goal. And it's interesting in this time because God is transitioning us out of the realm of soul and into the realm of spirit, and as such it is the awareness of the interaction of our spirits that are really the bottom line, and it's not so much even what our soul or our physical consciousness is necessarily doing, but it is that which our spirits are participating in. And I know that at this point it's still somewhat elusive and difficult to pinpoint, but I know some of you have come through in the Spirit, whether in the night visions or otherwise, and we have felt your faith and actually some interaction. And so this is new for Ann and I, for we pretty much have walked within the scope of our own awareness somewhat alone, which is how the Lord has told us in the past we would walk. And anyway, so it's been interesting, but I wanted you to know that we feel your faith. I wrote down some names that come through, and but there are so many more. But Dara and Robert and Lita and John and Keith and Sean and Robert, Emmanuel, Elijah, Kyrie, Johan, and there's Ron, Carrie. There's different ones that we've really sensed a connection here again in the Spirit. And it's very interesting because I know that Ann and I are praying for everyone that comes to the site, those that we actually have any level of interaction with. It's just something that it is upon our heart, because I know it's the travail of the sons, and that's no small thing, and we don't take lightly those that the Lord brings across our path. But we just wanted to take a moment and just let you know that we feel that strength, and we feel the flow of the connection. So really what my purpose for this evening's word is perhaps just to ramble a little bit. I know that here again, I know I pretty much everything that I say has probably been said in the last 6 months, perhaps at one time or another, or referenced in the book. But as we continue to transition out of the realm of soul and into the realm of spirit, as God brings us up higher and higher in His presence, in this time of His presence, the dynamics of our lives are continuing to change. The intensity of our life is changing, and it can be very difficult to explain that to anyone, because more and more our lives as a people are becoming very intense, if we really stand and believe what God has sent us here in the earth to be and to do. So it is an interesting set of dynamics. But Anne, we were talking about this afternoon, and what's interesting is as you come up higher in your vibration, as your awareness changes, a couple of things occur. One is your awareness of the realm of spirit becomes much more acute. And so you could say, well, all of a sudden I am sensing this and this and this. And yet it's not so much that all of a sudden these things are beginning to manifest to you, as it is you're becoming aware of that which has been within your atmosphere, or ministering to you, or in your, in your presence. So it's a dynamic that is more a function of coming up higher in His presence, where you begin to see more and more. There is another set of dynamics that we also have specifically experienced this week, and that is that as you become a threat, the spirit world takes notice of it. And it's so interesting, when we walk as a child, we're still learning the ways and the paths. God has His sons almost like in a covering. What I saw several years ago in vision, and it was very interesting to me at that time, and He brought that to me just prior to Him removing it. But I saw us almost like in a glass bubble or whatever, and the spirit realm, the evil, could only penetrate so far, but could not pass through, while God was preparing and maturing His sons. But you hit a certain point where that maturing process really can only be completed as you are fully exposed, and God begins to bring down the barriers that have been in some ways a protection while you were growing and developing. So then you hit a point where the next level of maturing is where you get right in the trenches, and you definitely live and walk the level of intensity and conflict that comes. So what we've been noticing during this short period of time now that has begun to unfold is that the authority of Christ, which we talk about in the book as the administration suitable to the fullness of the times, which is the empowering of the believer to begin to be able to wield the authority and power of Christ, to actually be the channel of that, becomes more than something that we assent to, but it becomes part of our energetic makeup. And you can analyze that a dozen different ways. You could say, well, it's a deeper level of Christ within you, it's the maturing, it's the Father, it's all these numbers of things, and it is all of that. But the bottom line is that the energy that you carry, the presence that you manifest, like in that book, the Ark, the word, the Ark of His presence, becomes something on a much deeper level, to such an extent that you no longer pose a potential threat in the spirit world. You become a threat. And all of a sudden, where in the past you were not really recognized, now all of a sudden the spirit world begins to notice your every movement, your every action. It was interesting for Anne this week, as we began to look back. She had to go out of town for a day, and as she was flying back into the LA area, something happened for her that she'd never experienced on this level, and that is that as she came closer to the LA area, the spirit world became extremely reactive to her, and it was very interesting for her. She had never seen anything quite as responsive to her presence coming back into the area as she noticed flying back in. And we even had that develop over the last couple of days. We were talking about it once again, that each area has a prevailing spirit that governs it. I think you may have understood that by virtue of our writings. But what you see in the orchestration of states and counties and cities and all of these structures, you would think are the operation of the agency of man that has created these limits and defined boundaries. But it's more a function of the spirit world that has done that, because each city and county and large geographical area has a governing set of I wouldn't necessarily call them principalities. I don't believe they're on that order, but they are definitely in the order of control that is wielding the power and the influence over those areas. And as such, when you go through into areas, you will notice oppressions on people that are indicative of just that area. And that's very interesting. But anyway, as Anne was driving in, we've always been sensitive to this to one degree or another, but it became even more acute this week. And I know that some of you have experienced these things. But one city to the next city to the next city, each had a different spirit, usually characterized by unique characteristics, whether it's perversion, heaviness, religious spirit, so many different spirits and what their characteristics or traits are. But as she drove through, literally from city to city to city to city, we had never seen such a quick reaction to her presence. And it was, to me, such a confirmation to the energy of Christ that is emanating, and what we should anticipate and expect as we move forward, because the presence of Christ will evoke reactions and will evoke changes. We've talked about that. But it's just coming up to another level of our awareness and another level of our experience. So it was very, very interesting. It reminded me of a vision I had many years ago. And until recently, that vision was on the shelf. And it was with one of the higher level elemental beings whose primary responsibility dealt with the controlling of the weather over the continental United States. And as I met with him, we dialogued, and he basically showed me through the movement of his hands, literally over a map, how the weather patterns could be defined or created through what he had set his intent on. And I always wondered what exactly the Lord was speaking to me in that vision, which came many years ago. But it's only in recent weeks now that we've begun to see, with this level of the kingdom unfolding, and a level of control, and literally a level of administering the authority of Christ that is here in our midst at this time, that we begin to see that it's a whole new ball game that is that we're dealing with. I think that's probably about all. Like I said, I'm just kind of rambling. I want to take 10 or 15 minutes and just thank you once again, and just to let you know that we feel the connection in the spirit. And I don't know if you're aware of it. It doesn't matter. And even if you don't know that you're praying for us, that doesn't matter either. There's just something in the spirit of a connection of heart that we feel, and we feel the strength of that. And I know our hearts are set to minister back to each one of you in the spirit. So it's like, we really don't have physical level relationships with just about anyone. We really don't. Not on this level. But in the spirit, it's something different, what God is creating by His Spirit. So we send our greetings to you.